Good evening, and welcome to the AJP Northeast Asia market close. Northeast Asia recovered from an early technology sell-off, but the strongest trades moved beyond semiconductors into retail dip buying in Korea, agriculture in China, and data center infrastructure in Japan. All three major markets were higher by late Tuesday, but the path mattered more than the headline gains. Korea staged the sharpest reversal. The KOSPI fell more than 4% intraday after Wall Street semiconductor losses and caution ahead of Nvidia earnings hit the region's artificial intelligence trade, before retail buying and rotation into other large caps pulled the benchmark back into positive territory. Japan followed a similar pattern. The Nikkei opened sharply lower after weakness in the Nasdaq, then recovered as US. Long-term yields and oil prices eased and buyers returned to selected data center names. Fujikura and SoftBank Group became major supports, while Advantest remained slightly lower. China was different. The Shanghai Composite was up modestly in late trade, but agriculture was a standout. Grain and seed stocks surged on policy support and renewed concern that an unusually strong El Niño could disrupt crop production. The common thread was a market willing to buy risk again, but no longer simply buying every AI-linked stock. The KOSPI closed around 6,743, up about 0.7% after falling as low as around 6,409 earlier in the session. The reversal was driven primarily by domestic money. By early afternoon, retail investors had bought more than 4 trillion won net, absorbing more than 3 trillion won of foreign selling. Financials, cosmetics, and energy shares also attracted rotation buying as the market recovered from its technology-led opening decline. Samsung Electronics finished flat at around 257,000 won, or about $186 after dropping sharply at the open. Investors are still reassessing the company's shareholder return plan after Monday's sell-off showed that expectations had run ahead of the announcement. SK Hynix gained about 0.4% to around 1.68 million won, or about $1,210, while SK Square fell about 1.5% to around 1.06 million won, or about $770. The important signal was therefore not another semiconductor surge. It was the willingness of domestic investors to buy aggressively into a global technology scare and broaden the recovery beyond the two memory giants. The Shanghai Composite was currently trading around 3,892, up about 0.3%. The benchmark gain was modest, but the internal market was much stronger. More than 3,600 stocks had been higher around midday, even as semiconductors and computing hardware shares remained under pressure. Agriculture provided the clearest leadership. Wangshan Donate jumped about 10% to around 9 yuan, while Jinjian cereals industry surged about 9% to around 9 yuan. The rally followed continued policy support for rural development and crop management, while a forecast for an exceptionally strong El Niño raised concern over drought, heavy rainfall, and possible disruption to global food production. That contrasted with Foxconn Industrial Internet, a major electronics and artificial intelligence server manufacturer, which slipped about 0.2% to around 60 yuan. China's session was therefore a rotation story. Investors were buying food security, consumption, and selected domestic themes, while remaining cautious on the expensive computing trade ahead of Nvidia's results. Tokyo completed its own reversal. The Nikkei 225 closed around 65,906, up about 0.6%, after opening more than 300 points lower and falling much further during the morning. The initial pressure came from Monday's decline in U.S. semiconductor stocks, but easing oil prices and calmer U.S. long-term yields encouraged dip buying, and data center infrastructure names led the recovery. Fujikura surged nearly 6% to around 5,316 yen. The fiber optic cable maker was among the largest positive contributors to the Nikkei as investors returned to companies supplying the physical infrastructure behind artificial intelligence data centers. SoftBank Group gained about 2.1% to around 5,081 yen and became another major index support. Advantest, however, slipped about 0.1% to around 34,470 yen. The chip testing giant remained the clearest reminder that investors were still reluctant to add aggressively to semiconductor exposure before Nvidia reports. Japan's rebound was therefore selective. Investors bought the infrastructure around the AI build-out more decisively than the semiconductor testing trade itself. Tuesday's recovery across Northeast Asia did not erase the technology risk, It showed that investors were willing to look around it. Korea relied on heavy retail buying, China rotated into agriculture and food security, and Japan favored data center infrastructure even as Advantest lagged. Nvidia's earnings now become the next test. If the results disappoint, can these newer pockets of leadership keep the regional rebound intact? We will be back in the next briefing to see whether Korea's retail-led rebound holds, whether China's agriculture rally broadens, and whether Japan's data center trade can withstand the next move in global technology stocks. For daily Northeast Asia market coverage, please subscribe. Thank you for watching AJP.